All right. Good evening, everyone. The microphones have been enabled, so as and when you are needed, uh, step in with your questions when you are called upon, as usual. And so today we don't have much time, and so we're going to do things a bit quick. Um, So the topic for today is going to be reading for information skills and strategies. In our previous lesson, we were introduced to um, uh, the SQ3R, right, as a means to help us read, right, and be able to remember. Right. And so going forward, we are going to look at reading for information. We are going to delve deeper into the SQ3R method um, for our reading and learning. All right. So when we talk about reading uh, for information, right, we would need to look at reading itself and comprehension and understanding of reading. And so every little thing that will help us to understand um, words, sentences, um, paragraphs, right, and so on. We will be looking at them. I would like to remind us to mute our mics as we are joining, even though I've enabled it, uh, so that we can have a smooth session. Remember that this session is being recorded. Right. Okay, so reading is one of the main activities in the academic discourse community, right? So when we talked about the discourse communities being the mother in our previous lessons, and academic discourse community being, let's say, one of the subsets or the children or a child of the discourse community. Um, when it has to do with education, right? Then you are dealing with theories, and when you are dealing with theories, I mean writings, then someone has to read, right? So in academic discourse communities, we are saying that reading is not uh, it's actually a requirement, right? Reading and writing. Okay, so even though this course is entirely about writing, it also corresponds with reading, right? Remember, if you're a good reader, it's also it makes sense that you'll be a good writer as well, right? And vice versa also works. You see, so it's very, very important looking at these ones. All right. Generally, one's writing is informed by uh, one's reading, and thus there's a direct relationship. As I was just saying, um, between reading and writing, as indicated in the slides for week one. Right. Students read to retrieve information for essays, assignments, presentations, and so on. Right. And so course reading lists, right? Um, Students are normally provided with reading lists from their various courses. Each reading list contains recommended reading materials for the course. Students are therefore required to read on topics in their courses from the materials on the reading list. So basically, in academic discourse communities, right, you are going to have a group of people called students, where they would be interested in information that they will be assessed on, or information on the various courses that they are learning. And so these courses contain, each one contains their respective contents, right? That students would need to fish for the information of that particular content, right? And so you would see students normally provided with these contents, right? These reading lists of things that either they will research on, or there are various slides like the one you are looking, where they will use it to fish information. And so the second point, which is reading list, contains recommended reading materials, right? It also have a couple of not just the topics for us to research or learn on, but also the particular areas, right? The recommended ones that we may be assessed on, right? And so it also has particular topics to delve in, right? That is related to the course that one may be studying. And so it's very, very important when you are part of an academic discourse community, like in this case, a university, right? So when you are reading for information, another thing to look at carefully is the source, right? The sources, right? And so in an academic discourse community, some of the sources of your information that you may be getting, right, your info from, maybe the ebooks, right? Nowadays we have online libraries. And so the books online, we are normally using the new age terms, ebooks, right? Where we can, like this one, the slides that we have on our phones, right? They are not the hard copy books, the normal one that we can hold and say that this is a book that we are learning, right? We normally compile them and have them on our phones for convenience everywhere we go, right? And so this is just one of them. We also have journal articles, right? In the libraries of the various universities or schools, right? Which are, remember, which are also academic discourse communities, right? So these are some of the things you will find in the schools. So we also have reports, right? Based on what people have carefully studied and reviewed and added their comments to, right? You are going to see reports on various departments, or even reports on after focusing on a particular field of study. So you see that people come out with reports, right, on their observations, right, or statistics, right. So we also have magazines for info, either about the school or even on the course or area of study, right? Newspapers to keep us updated on uh, current affairs, right? And then online material, general online materials, where you can have either a learning material platform for the school. So you can have some learning material platforms like Sakai learning material, right? And so on, where students can have access to lecture links, books, you see, and so on, like articles. Students could also get a hold of any material that has to do with their course of study. All right, so students may use library catalogs, right, including online catalogs to find sources. Okay, so these are all ways and means that students may be required to get their information. All right, reading methods, techniques. So when we talk about the reading methods, there are particular ones that are standardized um, uh, that we are normally exposed to, right? And then we follow to be able to understand and also be able to replicate what we've learned, right? And be able to produce it over time. And so there are some techniques, right? Whether traditional or formalized ones, right? So we are going to look at just one in the coming slide. So there are various techniques and methods of reading. The discussion that follows introduces students to some reading methods and techniques. So as we studied in our previous lessons, the types of reading, right? We went through the skimming, scanning, close reading, extensive reading, and we elaborated on these um, types of reading, right? Where we said skimming is a quick method of reading aimed at finding general information. So with this one, you are just looking at the preface. You see, before you open a book, you have this um, side of the book, this introductory side of the book, where you see the preface, you see the topic, right? You may even see the topics and the subheadings, right? The subtopics, as we say, right? And then you just be going through that, right? Um, During this stage too, I think you'll be um, looking generally about what you are about to read about. And then from this, you now move on to a stage where you begin to ask yourself questions. Now that you'll be able to know the topic that is you are about to read, right? Now you begin to frame sentences or questions, right? As to the topic that you're about to delve into, okay? And this would help you to sharpen your scope of or your sensitivity of wanting to know more about what you want to read. Because if you start off by creating your own questions in your mind, you activate that side of your mind that wants to know about that question more. So you see that it keeps you, in a way, it keeps you wanting to read more, right? To get until you get those kinds or those messages. So skimming helps in that way to keep you reading or keep you excited. So those of us who get bored during our reading sessions, right? This is one technique that will keep you in the game of reading. Is that all right? Okay, so now let's delve deeper into skimming. So when searching for an appropriate material to read, the skimming method will give you a general sense of a material you have to read and tell you whether or not that material is useful. You get it? So like I was saying, the introductory part of the whole thing, it will give you the topics and all that. That's what you are searching for during the skimming period, right? Before you even read, right? You are just scanning through these things. And so, and also when you even begin, you are just only looking at specific things that highlights to you, right? Or pops up to you because you've asked yourself about the question. So let's say you are looking at a topic like photosynthesis, right? So you begin by looking at even or thinking about what at all photosynthesis is, right? And then when you think like that, you are looking at certain details that has to do on giving you information on what or enlightening you on what actually photosynthesis is. You get it? And so it's very, very important. In other words, skimming can be used in finding and assessing a reading material. So as you are searching based on this, the skimming method is also helping you to just get that important information. You get it? So that you can move on. Um, all these reading methods can also help you in studies because it doesn't help you to only know about or receive information, but it also helps you to remember, also to understand. And so it can be an influential part of your studies, right? And you have to remember that when it comes to skimming, this comes in the exam of those who are writing, studying this course, academic writing one, right? This course, most of the students are asked these questions, right? The differences between extensive reading, skimming, and so on. And so just remember that in skimming, the reader does not read the entire material, right? He or she reads selected parts of the library of the material to get an overview of the information. So basically not into details, but just the general overview of what is to be taught, right? Or what is to be learned, or what is to be read. And remember that it also helps you to study. So what is to be learned, right? And read because you are also reading for information, right? So still on reading for information, there are certain items that includes skimming. So when I was doing my explanation, I was talking about the topics, subtopics, and so on. Right now, we are going to go into details on what skimming really is about. Right. So in skimming a textbook or a journal article, for instance, one may read the following part. So we have title and subtitle. This is also the topics and subtopics, right? Depending on which um, country or where you find yourself, right? What is being used most. All right. It gives you a good idea of the subject matter, right? So with titles and subtitle, what you are doing in skimming is that you want to just get the general overview of what you are going to read about. You see, so it's kind of like doing this actually kind of whet your appetite for what you're about to read. So normal, you see, a lot of black people, because generally it is known, I don't know how true that is, but known that a lot of black people don't like reading. Uh, we normally want to, by the hearing of the title, most times the main title, we just want to just dive into the main content, right? But you see, one of the ways to maintain consistency in reading, right, is to find other things that you may be excited about, and not just the title, the main title of the book, right? So you would also, you may need to, perhaps maybe there are other information that are hidden somewhere that you may not pay close attention to. But you see, with the titles and subtitle heading, the side, right, the section, everything is in a nutshell, right? In fact, they are in titles and subtitles only. So you can go through everything over there. So you get to know those ones that you may have an idea of by the basis of the word formation, right? So by the word, you may understand the topic a bit. So it helps you to identify where you need to pay attention to. And it also whets your appetite on what you need to know on some areas that you may not know as well, right? And may need to delve into as well. So it will keep you going during the reading, especially when you have a lot to read. Okay, so it's very, very important. And then we have table of contents. So it is after the topics, right? After looking at the topic, that's when you come to the table of content. It gives a review of the specific subject covered in the book. So the various topics, subjects that are covered in the book, right? This is where you find the table of contents. So we also have forward, preface, to find out the purpose of the book, right? And also maybe there's a famous person who is an expert in that field who has appended his signature or his voice, right, in a piece of writing, right, through the forward side, right, to elaborate on the fact that he has gone through. So these things also help us to skim, right, and give a general introductory to what we want to read about, right? And then you also have copyright page. Okay, so it depends on what type of reader you are, right? When I say what type of reader, I mean whether you are reading for people who have been referenced. There are people who who get books to read because they need particular information that maybe a student may not need. Because remember that in academic discourse communities, it is not only students, but you also have lecturers. So lecturers may be needing certain copyright, um, uh, how do you call it, pieces, right, of writing to know how to display certain content over the internet. You see, and so different people would have different purposes of reading for information, right? So the copyright page is also important, even though it may not be important to a student who would need the actual content, right? So this helps you, this tells us the dates and place of the publication, right? We need current information. The date of publication may tell us how old a book is. So on the student side too, it will help us to know how current the content is, right? So you would want to know. So when it comes to combined slides in universities, um, sometimes you have certain universities where predecessors have done combined slides for particular topics, right, or courses, and these courses um, may be reviewing their slides, their general slides each year. You see, so the copyright page side, where it contains the date that it was published, would also help us to know how current it is, so that we know which areas to focus on, because in certain years, certain topics are focused or zoomed in more, right, than previous years or other years to come, right? So it's very, very important as a student. If you go through the copyright page side or section, this is what you should be looking for, right? In order to focus on certain areas that would be examinable. We were supposed to use 30 minutes, I understand, and so we are going to take the next 4 minutes, since we began a bit late. Okay. All right, and so I'll plead with the organizers of this session to give us some 5 minutes, right, and to sum up today's session. All right. So reading for information, right? We are still on it. So we are also enumerating now the contents in scheming. So when you are scheming, what they are the actual things, right, that we are looking at. So we mentioned um, titles and subtitles, right? We mentioned uh, preface, right? So which also includes the introduction. So basically, we have headings, subheadings, introductions. That's number two. Number one is headings and subheadings. Number two is introductions. Number three is illustrations. So if you are studying and let's say a course like statistics, right, or research methods and so on, right, you are also not looking at the theory side, but you are also looking at the various charts, the diagrams that you have, the graphs, the tables, to also just skim through to see what you have read may correspond or may look like in the form of diagrams. So you are just doing all these things quickly, right? So these are the items involved in scheming, right? So headings, number one, headings, subheadings and subheadings. That's number one. Number two, introduction. Number three was what? Illustrations, right? Number four, topic sentences, right? When we talk about topics, and we are going to delve deeper into it in our next session, I believe, right? So this is generally the main idea, that is uh, controlling a particular sentence or a particular group of sentences. So let's just say paragraph, right, or a discourse. Okay, so this is basically what a topic sentence is, and we are going to delve deeper into it. So, and then after that, you're also looking at conclusions. So when you are skimming, you are just going through all these items, right? Number four was topic sentences, and number five was what? Conclusion, right? So occasionally we read a small section that looks important, that may deal with what you really want to know, right? So reading these items will help one get an overview of the information, right? And this is where I would bring the end of today's lessons. We are going to delve deeper. The session was supposed to be 30 minutes. And so we are going to try and do our best. If you have any question at this point, you can ask. You can raise your hand and ask so that you could be attended to. If you would prefer also, you can text me behind the scenes. You have my WhatsApp number. You can reach out so that you could ask your questions and then you'll be immediately attended to. All right. Thank you for participating in this session. The next session continues in some few minutes. All right. So if there are no questions, this is where we draw the curtains. See you in the next session. Bye-bye.